This is honestly one of the most sad and kind of confusing stories in Hollywood right now. Okay, so let's back up the truck a little bit. Doug Liman, who's I think is a terrific director. I mean, he's made some stuff I don't like, but he can make some really fun movies. And I've actually I was in one of his movies, actually. Anyway, so he's doing Roadhouse, right? And originally when he signed up to do Roadhouse, MGM was still its own independent studio. And they agreed to make a Roadhouse movie. Now, before they ever started shooting the movie, though, Amazon purchased MGM. Now, according to Doug Liman, they then began conversations with Amazon about whether or not this will be a theatrical release, which is what he originally signed on to do, or be a streaming movie, and Amazon was non-committal. So maybe we'll go theatrical, maybe we'll go streaming, whatever. Now, ultimately, they decided Amazon made the wrong choice, by the way, but they made the wrong choice, but it was their choice to make it a streaming exclusive. The new Roadhouse film with Jake Gyllenhaal was going to be a streaming exclusive. Now, after that, you guys remember a couple weeks ago, the director Doug Liman, I believe it was in Variety, wrote an op-ed piece, wrote an editorial for Variety, bashing Amazon, saying, I'm not even going to go to the premiere of my own film at South by Southwest because they kept leading me on thinking that we were going to make this a theatrical film. They kept saying, oh, maybe we'll make it theatrical. And said, this film should be theatrical. That's what I signed up for. That's what I made this film for. Amazon doesn't care about cinema. Amazon doesn't care about this. And he was really upset, and he's boycotting his own movie. But then another report came out. I think it was in Deadline. Another report came out saying that, well, actually, here's what happened. After Amazon bought MGM, they went to the producers and the filmmakers and said, well, tell you what, we can give you a $60 million budget and we can put this out theatrically because we need to save some money so we can put a marketing campaign behind it. So you can have $60 million to make this movie and it goes to theaters, or you can have $80 million. I think that was the number. Forgive me if I'm off by a little bit. Or we can give you $80 million to make this movie and we put it to streaming. And Deadline says the filmmakers took the money. They took the money, which kind of contradicts what Doug Liman was saying. And now there's somebody else contradicting what Doug Liman is saying. His star of the movie, Jake Gyllenhaal. Ooh. In response to Doug Liman saying that they kind of led me to believe we were going to put this out in theaters, Jake Gyllenhaal said the following. This comes to us from the folks at IndieWire. Gyllenhaal says, I adore Doug's tenacity, and I think he is advocating for filmmakers and film in the cinema and theatrical releases. But, I mean, Amazon was always clear that it was streaming. Amazon always made it clear that it was going to be streaming. This is a really interesting statement from Gyllenhaal because he's walking a very fine line. He's making sure to be very complimentary to his director. I love Doug, his tenacity. He wants to stand up for theaters and stand up for cinema. But as far as what Doug's saying about they were kind of teasing us, he says Amazon was always pretty straight with us. This is going to go to streaming. They've always been straight with us. This is going to streaming. This kind of coincides with that Deadline report where it said they early gave them the option, look, you can make it theatrical, but you're going to have less money to make the movie with, or you can go streaming and we'll give you more money. And they said, give us more money. Which I need to hear Doug Liman respond to this because I'll be honest with you, this just sounds to me like Doug Liman just wrote an article because he was mad and lied, like straight up lied. And for the record, I agree with Doug Liman's premise. Amazon should 100% be putting this movie in theaters. Amazon is 100% making a mistake by doing this. They're cutting out the knees of their filmmakers. They're cutting their own knees out. Because they could make a little bit of money in theaters and then it will do even better on streaming. All data points have always proved that. This isn't even a debate. It's not a discussion. You put it in theaters first, it'll do better on streaming. So Amazon is 100% making a mistake doing this. But that doesn't give Doug Liman the right to lie about it. And guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. On average, it takes about 30 days for a person to break their New Year's resolution. So if saving money was on your 2024 list, your odds aren't looking that great. Luckily, I have a 100% guaranteed way to save you money this year. Just switch to Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for $15 a month. I've told you guys many times that after switching to Mint Mobile, I am spending less than a third on my cell bill than I used to with a major carrier. Say goodbye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. All Mint plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. And don't worry about having to change phones or numbers. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. So guys, to get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bills to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Chris, as we look at that one article, I believe it was Deadline, writing the story that, hey, Amazon gave them the choice. Take less money, theaters. Take more money, streaming. They said, money, please. And now Jake Gyllenhaal is saying, yeah, I love Doug, but Amazon was always pretty clear this is going to streaming. This was never it. I don't know. This has been a really interesting he said, she said kind of back and forth stuff. And what do you make of all this at this point, now that we've got Gyllenhaal's comments?
It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And Gyllenhaal sounds very much like an actor who would like to keep his career. He sounds like an actor who really wants people to see this thing. I do love his sentiment, I should say, not sediment. That's rocks. Yeah, so his sentiment about how, he's watched movies on a laptop and been equally moved as when he's in a theater, because the job of a story is to move people. But that he enjoys the theatrical release, but is trying to embrace streaming as well. It's a very diplomatic Switzerland kind of answer, right? Yeah. Of, I'm not going to take a hard stance, but also Amazon did say what they said. I don't know. And, he's had his own scandals recently. And so I feel like he is very versed in PR talk and all of that. It does make me a little concerned about what Doug Liman thought was going on here. Because it is getting to the point of, if it is not just the studio saving face and saying this has always been the deal, if it's also the actors and the other people on board, all the crew and everything too, saying this has always been the case, is Doug okay? Does he have a very different idea of how this happened? Because obviously you want your film to have a theatrical release. Obviously the data shows that you have a more successful film if it goes into a theaters and then on streaming on all of that. But if this has always been the deal, I don't understand what sort of agenda Doug has here with trying to drag his own film and the studio that produced it. Because that's kind of what it's starting to feel like. Again, we don't know everything that's happening here. It is that he said, she said, this director versus this studio kind of thing. And I hate to ever side with Amazon, but it is all adding up in this really, really negative light for Doug Liman, looking like he didn't read his own contract, looking like he didn't know what he was getting into, and now snowballing that miscommunication out of control. I hope that's not the case. I hope there is something to what he's been saying, because otherwise I feel like this is the kind of thing that can make or break a career. I love the idea of somebody standing up to a studio. I don't love the idea of somebody blatantly lying to try to make some kind of point about how films belong in the cinema. Because I feel like this negates that cause then. If it's, no, I decided to try to change the rules of the contract last minute. And I don't know if you got another picture of Doug Liman there that we could bring up, but I mean, here's the funny thing. I would have had no problem at all if Doug Liman had written an op-ed piece on Variety and just said, I'm going to boycott the premiere of my own movie because, to your point, Doug has always kind of, and I think he's a fun director. I really like a lot of his movies, but he always looks like a guy who doesn't quite know if it's Monday or Thursday right now. But I mean, if he had written his op-ed piece, that's messed up. He looks a little bit like, hey, what's up? If he had written his op-ed piece just to say, you know what, we ended up making an exceptional movie and the test scores have been through the roof.
and we very stable genes, and we really should be putting this thing in theaters. And I get that the original, that they told us it was going to be streaming. I get that, but we've got a great product, and we're in an important time when these sorts of movies should be going to theaters. And I've expressed that to Amazon, and they're insisting on sticking just with going streaming. So I'm going to sit this one out. You know what? Perfect. That's a perfectly rational, perfectly legitimate position to take. I would have had no problem with that. But to lie about the situation, to say, well, Amazon's has told me all along that they might put this in theaters. Okay, Doug, but everybody else so far who's weighing in on this is saying that that's not true. Even your star of the movie is saying
that gets a little dicey.
Yeah, it's getting dicey. Here's the unfortunate part. Throwing in the little dicey is undermining his own argument. Because his own argument is great, but as soon as you start trying to throw in lies to back it up, well, now you've undermined yourself. And it's too bad, because now instead of talking about how this movie should be going to theaters, now we've got to talk about how the news outlets, Amazon, and Jake Gyllenhaal are all saying you're lying. Now that's the story. Instead of the story just being about putting... Because Doug Liman had the opportunity to make the conversation just about, we got a great movie, it should go to theaters.
Right.
And he's throwing that away.
Maybe he was drinking that cinema juice from his buddy here.
Yeah,
he was like, hey, man, it worked for Maverick. I'm going to do this. And then it just backfired, you know? I don't know.
It's too bad. It's unfortunate because he was right. He's right. Amazon should be putting this in theaters.
Yeah.
But you muddied the waters. And now we're just going to talk about how Doug Liman's a liar. And now our other studio's going to hesitate to work with him again. Because it's like, look, Amazon was pretty clear with him. They made a deal. He made the movie. And now he's trying to undermine his own movie. Who's to say he won't do the same thing if we work with him? And he could be hurting his career here.
Exactly. There's a reason why assholes continue to work a lot of the time, but difficult people don't. There is a difference between those perceptions, right? Someone can be very obnoxious on set or be problematic or be demanding, but they can toe the line when they're making the press circuit, right? If you are difficult and you do stuff like this, that is the final nail in your coffin in Hollywood.
Yeah, because I'll tell you a story. I'm not going to name names, though.
Name.
At some point...
Ray.
At some point, I won't say if it was for the John Campea Show, when I was at Collider, when I was at AMC, I won't even give you a time frame. But there was somebody that some of you watching, I am sure you've heard their name. There was somebody who was approaching me about a job and about working for me at either the John Campea Show, AMC, or Collider, right? And I then got contacted by two different, granted, with this part of the, reference checking, whatever. But I talked to two people at two other organizations that told me a very similar story. No laws were broken or anything like that, but it was just something, a clear repeated behavior. And that I just had to then sit down with this person and say, look, you might be really great, but other people who've worked with you have told me they've had this problem with you. And I can't take that risk. So we can't work together. I wish you well, but I can't take that risk. I got other people are relying on me to make good decisions for what we do here, and we can't take that risk. Doug Liman has put himself in that position now, which is unfortunate because he can make really fun movies. And if Roadhouse ends up being as good as what Amazon is saying it is, then it's going to be a real shame for that. But I don't know. We'll just have to. And isn't he supposed to be making the outer space movie with Tom Cruise? Isn't that Doug Liman directing that? I can't remember. It might be Doug Liman directing that one. It might be somebody else. But anyway, we're just going to have to see what happens with that. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show Podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.